Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to this other edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. Today we are going to be looking at the Guardian Post edition for today, presenting indicators to show that the regime of President Paul Biya is not doing well for the nation, citing aspect of acute energy shortage alongside water, deplorable road infrastructure, amongst others. We are going to be looking at all of this as presented by the Guardian Post newspaper. We also briefly are going to be looking at the decentralization code since it was enacted by the President of the Republic. We are going to ponder on what has changed as far as decentralization is concerned in Cameroon, especially following the elections of regional council members in the 10 regions of our country. Has anything changed as far as the functions of the mayors, the city mayors that were recently elected, as well as other aspects accompanying the decentralization process, especially also after the President of the Republic made it very clear that he wanted a fast tracking of that process. Are the people living in the respective municipalities, communities, feeling the impacts? Do they have the impression that anything is changing as far as the decentralization process in Cameroon is concerned? We are discussing this with panelists who already are seated in the house. ATEM BAKO is in the house with us. He is a Pan-Africanist. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. LEONARD, and all the other panelists who are present tonight. And I want to greet all Cameroonians and those who are watching worldwide. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Okay, also with us is Mohamedou SULEMAN, all the way from Kumba. He is a militant of with the Social Democratic Front. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, Mr. Kom, it's a pleasure to be on board. I wish to salute our favorite listeners outside there and my co-panelists who are here to brainstorm the issues of the day.
Okay, JAVIS is also sitting in with us this evening. Good evening and welcome, JAVIS.
Good evening, Leonard. Good evening to President Paul Biya. Good evening to Chairman Nijon Fundi. Good evening to Professor Maurice Kanto, Ayapo Abine, Senior Barrister Ashu, Pete Ikoso, and good evening to all political stakeholders, and of course the Bishop of Biya, His Lordship Michael David.
We are also in the company of Prince Joel MUKAGE. He is a journalist. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening to you, Mr. Leo. Good evening to co-panelists. Good evening to the million telespectators of My Media Prime and Prime App particularly. Special good evening to the peace-loving people of MUKAGE Subdivision and to Honorable Ngala Gerard.
I'll start with you, ATEM BAKO. The Guardian Post is positing that there are every indication, or there are many indications that suggest that the Biya's regime is failing the nation. Is that the impression you have looking at things globally in the nation?
Mr. Leonard, that question will depend on who is answering the question.
Okay.
And on what context are we defining that particular question? Because if you ask someone in the CPDM regime, he would tell you that the regime is doing so well because it's a system that tends to benefit the few and not the masses. It is a system which did not derive from the spirit of the Cameroonians themselves. It is not like it was a one man who had a good political will for his people that decided to build a legacy that could outlive him even when he is not there. It's where he could build a system where even in his absence it could tend to still benefit the nation. But what we are finding today in Cameroon, it is a system which has been cohorted with very few elites of our people and the elites of the world who designed a system that tends to favor the few and not the people of Cameroon themselves. Because if you realize in so many decisions that have been taken in our country, policies and whether it is institutions that are put in place, the population of the country was not consulted. The people have not been put into consideration as to what their opinions are. You realize people taking decisions as individuals in their capacity without consulting the population of the country in which they represent, and those that they are supposed to reflect the aspiration and the vision, the goals, the desires of the people. This is not the case we have today in Cameroon. We have people who claim to practice democracy, but clearly we have seen that with all impression they give us that, I mean, being a president is a rotational process where today you have probably a president either serves for 2 terms, even 4 term, even the 5th term or whatever, and then another takes over. It is not the case, Mr. Leo. Where here we find an individual who seems to have all the knife, the cutlass in his hand to decide the lives and the future of Cameroonians, which this is very delicate to manage the lives of people, especially when you do not consult the people. We have leaders in Cameroon, Mr. Leo, who do not communicate with their people. You cannot be a leader who you are put up there to represent the people, to make decisions that are supposed to benefit and improve the life of your countrymen. You don't even communicate with the people. You don't even know what the people want. You don't even know the cry of the people. As a matter of fact, you live like gods in their midst, where you become almost like a ghost and a spirit, where you don't have any contact with this individual. So I will tell you that, Mr. Liu, prior to that question that you have posed to me, I will tell you that the regime, as far as this country is concerned, has failed, and did not fail only now, failed way back, Mr. Liu, when the Cameroonians themselves fought to have full political rights. I will tell you that democracy, Mr. Liu, without autonomy is just like a businessman without capital. So until we get to that point where we are able to take decisions that are in favor of the people who have appointed us in...
Yeah, you raise a lot this issue of not consulting people, but I think the regime borrowed to tell you that the people were consulted during presidential elections, and the people actually gave their consent that they are very okay with the person that is guiding the destiny of this nation. And then they also tell you that MPs are duly elected from the respective constituencies that make up the nation to also speak on behalf of the people. How then would you say the people are never consulted?
Mr. Leo, there is a saying that when a question is asked to you in court, and your first response was a lie, they discredit you on every other thing you say. This country in 1999 was declared the most corrupted country in the world, which tells you alone that you see, leadership is not suggestion, is not opinion, it's evidence. What have you been able to do? Let's go to development. What have you been able to give the people to improve their life standard? Come back to health, come back to education. Look at all the aspects, Mr. Liu. Cameroonians are living in torment today. It is true at one point that you say that in the 2018 election, the people gave him their vote. But what do you expect? People who are very poor, who cannot feed themselves, people who have no willpower, what then do you expect them to come out as a resolution when you are able to put bread on their table? So you starve the people and make it in such a way that when you need their services, when you need their help, that is when you give them the thing which they need every day, food, and then they turn now to sell you their birthright. Mr. Leo, that is not what we call democracy. The people should be able to make decisions under normal circumstances and not under duress, where they are pressurized and left with no option. So what I'm simply trying to tell you here, Mr. Leo, is that if the leadership in Cameroon has been working for the Cameroonians, Mr. Leo, nobody should ask that question. It should be evidently clear to every other person. Now let's keep the side away from whether the regime favors the people of this country. Let's make other comparison with other African countries, Mr. Liu. This country, as compared to a country like Tanzania, Rwanda, we are almost 200 years behind. As a matter of fact, our administrators are supposed to really be ashamed, because when they travel out, when they move around, even in our own country, you see the undevelopment, Mr. Liu. This is just to tell you that there is no goodwill, and that is why I come back to a system. And these systems are systems which are designed. That's why you see, you call in a politician, put in somebody in a post of a public service. He tends to protect himself and then protect that system. they don't reflect the people who they represent. At the end of the day, who are they representing, Mr. Liu? The people they are representing, they don't communicate with the people. But here you find in other communities where you see a prime minister, he takes a bus, he takes a taxi, he takes a metro, he takes a tram. Our own here are ghosts. We only see them on TV. We don't see them eye to eye, Mr.
Okay,
Liu. So
okay. Good evening to you, and Deep Tambe Ebota, Agem Daniel, good evening to you, Tifu Tebo, Mbila Bruno, Gilberto Solo, good evening to you, Nora Sakal, and good evening to you all watching the program, and Oben Clayton Ojong, good evening to you. Now, Suleiman, one of the core issues raised by the Guardian Post has to do with persistent blackouts in the nation. You live in Kumba. How has the situation been when we talk of, I'm talking about energy? Eh?
Yeah, I think infrastructure-wise.
No, energy, electricity.
Energy we have. Up to now, I got information from that throughout today there was no light. Somebody called me that there was no light throughout today. So as for Kumba, we are used to it. Light, total light failure. Light is very erratic in Kumba. It comes out now, it goes away, and you don't have nobody to complain, and the bills are coming, and people are paying the bills. I mean, I don't understand. And they say we are getting towards 2035. So I begin to wonder, with this type of erratic light failure we're having in Kumba, I don't know where. I mean, light, Kumba people are suffering, and they say you cannot take is it NOEL to court. Your fridges they get spoiled. Your computer machine, photocopy machine, they get spoiled. You have virtually everything gets spoiled, and yet you don't have no way to go and complain, and you just accept the situation like that because there is an embargo protecting one structure in the name of NOEL. But I'm telling you that Kumba people are suffering for light. If there's any place where I see people are suffering for light, it's Kumba. I mean, 2 days, 3 days, no light in Kumba. People go around, even the generators are not there because they're so expensive to maintain. People go there to pay 200 francs to charge their phones. But there's no light. So I think in Kumbas, I mean, something has to be done towards this direction to restore light and restore the hope of the people in the regime of Paul Biya. But if not so, it's a foregone conclusion. It's a wasted effort. The regime has failed as far as Kumba people are concerned in the provision of light.
What Mr. Sule is raising is also very acute in many other areas in Cameroon. Regularly, we get reports from different communities that we have no lights. Yet, recently we saw the President of the Republic inaugurating dams that were expected to have upgraded the quantity or quality of what we as Cameroonians were supposed to be consuming by now.
Mr. Liu, the issue of light as raised by the Guardian Post is just one of those problems that Cameroonians go through daily. And when we talk about light, somebody who comes from the area where I come from, it's like a myth. It's like a story because there they don't know light at all. They've not seen light since light started. You go to Misaji, there is no light there. In other areas in Cameroon as a whole, the issue of electricity in town, at least in Douala and Yaoundé, we can talk about power shortage, like the Guardian Post is talking about. Light today and light the other day they don't have. But there are areas where they have there is no light. I feel that Cameroon has all it takes to ensure that we have enough electricity. Menchum, for instance, has a Menchum force that can generate enough light for us. Because when I look at a town, the economic heart of Cameroon like Douala, that people need to go for days, at times weeks without electricity. And at times even when lights come, people, because Cameroonians are already adapting with this situation of light in Cameroon, when light comes, what they do is they struggle to charge their phones to ensure that if it doesn't come 1-2 days, they manage what they've charged already. I think that it doesn't really, it's not good, because Cameroon, like you cited, the dams, we have the Memvele, the Lompanga, and so many. What then is preventing Cameroon from not having lights? Look at what the image Cameroon sold during the AFCON. Cameroon, in matches that were ongoing, players had to stay for close to 30 minutes because of blackout, no light. It tells you that we are still far from achieving some of the goals that the head of state promised Cameroonians, because electricity and water are just basic necessities in any country that is developing, not even developed. But if in 2021, Cameroon should still be talking about issues of electricity, Cameroonians should still be crying issues of water, then there is a problem in Cameroon. I don't know that it is a time that we really raise this call, just like the Guardian Post did, because even when they wrote, there are those who feel that the issue of electricity is not something new, the issue of water is not new. But the truth is, when it becomes persistent, there is cause for alarm. There are villages, like I said before now, Mr. Leo, that there is no electricity. How do you explain that? That there are areas in 2021 that the people still use bush lamps. How do you explain? That there are areas in Cameroon that people still use stream water to drink. How do you explain it? Whereas the people have mayors in these areas, they have parliamentarians, and overall they have a president. But these things are only good during elections where they come, they promise you, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. Yet the basic necessities, because when we're teaching us goods in economics, there's this issue of, it's a basic. Electricity is a basic commodity that should be given.
The Guardian Post actually calls it acute, and many Cameroonians will agree to that. Where is the problem? Is it the company that now enjoys a monopoly for a very long time, or it is the will of the government not to do as much as many would have expected, though we have seen the investments in the construction of these dams?
I would say that it's an issue of bottlenecks. You remember that was 2013 or 12, the president talked about administrative bottlenecks and questioned why is it that things are not happening the way they should because of administrative bottlenecks. I'll give you an example before I answer a question. When I went to Kenya, that was December, January, for the first question I asked when I landed in Nairobi, where I was being lodged, is how often do you people have blackout? So that I know how I charge my gadget. And they said it's rare to have blackout. The next issue I asked is water. How consistent is your water? And they laughed. They said, why ask this question? And I said, because I need to know. They said, no, they don't know about water shortage here. So the next question I asked was the security in this environment, how far? So they told me that it's secure. So I asked, they were shocked why I was asking that question, because where I come from, we do have blackout. But the solution, or what I got, was that the policies that have been put forward are policies that individuals have the ability to take companies to court, electric companies to court. Now, because they have the ability to take these energy supplying companies to court, these companies do their best not to have blackouts at any point in time. So that's why their electricity is constant, their water supply is constant. But when you reverse the situation, it's an issue of policy and administrative bottlenecks, whereby some individuals who are well placed in society feel like it should be done this way because they have financial, what we call the economy of it, which money comes through their pocket. For example, Mr. Liu, if you look at Enyo itself, you cannot take them to court. Let's just keep aside that you cannot take them to court, whether you are right or wrong. But if in position where you are right, if you could take them to court, that area, the manager operating in that area will do everything within the power to ensure that there is stability in that area. Yes, there are policies that govern electricity supply in Cameroon, but these policies are not being enforced, and it's like giving you a rope and giving you a goat and a rope and pulling the rope behind. So what I see is an issue of policy. If the government can carve out a policy and say, hey, this is what we have to do, Enyo can be taken to court, or any other power supply energy can be taken to court. Liberalize it, avoid monopoly, give individuals the opportunity to come with other energy sources which can be hosted. I think this will go a long way. And another issue is, When I talk about policy, I talk about investment policy. Look at Mention 4, for example. We have Mention 4. We have the one that you are going to Moyoka, the Yoke Dam. Yoke Dam is fully active when you are going to Kumbai. When you pass, I see the turbine, the water still flow. Yoke Dam, you cannot to Menvele, the Longpanga. All these dams, Mr. Liu, these are issues where we should not be thinking about having problem with electricity. But why? Policy. Mention Dam, I was told from my geology classes in Lycée Bilen that it can supply the whole of West Africa. And if you can supply the whole of West Africa, it means that we have the ability to export electricity to Nigeria. Nigeria can buy us electricity, and we are closer to Nigeria. But these policies, we are exporting, but we cannot consume, and we are not even exporting as we ought to export. We are depending on cocoa. We are depending on other on oil. But electricity is our goal. It's something that we can make use of and supply the entire West Africa and just East Africa. But we don't have this. So the issue of policy simply because if we develop this, people will not have the ability. People will now be open. The economy will be open, and there will not be that kind of top bottom, because we like a lot of bureaucratic way in which homecoming. So if Mr. Suleman is wealthy or is a government workplace, he will not want the sector to be open because he will want to be the only homecoming. So it's an issue of policy. Everybody wants to be the only homecoming. So that's why I feel like if the policies are the policy is liberated in such a way that individuals can harness other sources of energy and are encouraged, if the government can go now to Mention 4, the other abandoned area, and liberalize the process, it will make it better for us to have power and energy.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and all the panelists in the studio. When I was a little child, I used to see taps everywhere, but today it's all disappeared, Mr. Biya, and the regime is disappointment. Papa Oyoyo is writing from Douala. Hi, Mr. Liu, good evening. I'm Mercy from Mamfe. For 4 years today, Manu as a whole has no lights. Okay, we actually feel for you people out there in Mamfe. Hello, Mr. Liu, the Kadiri from Greek Cyprus. This is Kadiri from Greek Cyprus. I agree with what Mr. BAKO just said, but my question is, why is the regime not consulting the people it claims that voted for them in power? This tells us that they are very aware that Cameroonians no longer need them, so they know how they came to power without the people. So I don't see any reason why they should consult the people, as Mr. BAKO explained. BAKO, how do you also understand this acute shortage and scarcity of water when we know that Cameroon has streams, rivers almost everywhere?
It's just like JAVIS was trying to explain. You see, institutions are built by strong leaders and strong leadership, people who have good political wills, and not the vice versa, whereby the people say we need stronger institutions. As long as we have incompetent people who are managing those institutions, we will go nowhere. You see, when you come back to policy, take a good example of Israel. It's a desert land, but they sell water to other nations. How is that possible? We have rivers, we have oceans, we have all kinds of possibility to make Cameroonians have free-born water. Yet we still call Chinese people to come to Cameroon and make us to drink water in places like Douala. Mr. Liu, you come to ask yourself that in the next 100 years, if we go down this route, I'm not sure we would even be in the map of existence, because at the end of the day, I don't know what these people want to reduce the Cameroonians to become. The kind of self-esteem they have reduced, and they have destroyed the identity of Cameroonians. Today, no Cameroonian can be bold to say, I'm from Cameroon, because the country is all messed up. From electricity, you mentioned, Mr. Liu, look at Dubai. How do they generate electricity? They don't have dams like we do have dams. They use power nuclear, solar energy, renewable energy, and they use solar. What is wrong with us? The amount of sunlight we have every day in places like Douala, all Cameroonians in Douala, for example, Kumba, Tiko, Mamfe, all other places should have free electricity like the man did in Libya. That's what Gaddafi did. Electricity in Libya.
Like the president of Senegal, who says, I actually abolished, Macky Sall says, I abolished the Senate so that the amount that was supposed to be consumed by the Senate, I pump it in as solar energy.
But this is what JAVIS was talking about. It all comes back to policy. leaders who have good political will to improve the life standard of their nation and their countrymen. It goes back to the goodwill that these individuals that are managing the lives of 25 million Cameroonians, just about 5 or 10% of them, that are managing the lives of 25 million Cameroonians, Mr. Liu, you ask yourself that it is really mind-boggling. But this is I really strongly believe that, Mr. Liu, if Cameroonians do not sit down and have a rethink on where this country is going to, then I'm not sure we are going to emerge out from where we are today. It is impossible and unheard of that in places like Kumba, for over 2-3 weeks, there will be no lights. Even in Douala here, Mr. Liu, there are times for 3 good days, there's no water. We have rain falling. We have ocean, sea everywhere around. What is the problem, Mr. Liu, at the end of the day? Are you saying that we don't have? So you come to realize that poverty is not the absence of capital. Poverty is just, how will I put it? It's just a state of ignorance. Mm-hmm. If you look at this kind of society, Mr. Liu, I think that it's a society that promotes witchcraft, because I cannot understand where year after year this country, in every 10 years, per the analysis that the United Nations made, is able to create 7 poor million Cameroonians every 10 years. While you have Chinese entering here who have overflooded their prisons over there, we don't even ask them on what mission. We don't even do a background check on the individuals that leave China and leave other places like France, come to Cameroon. We welcome them, and the 10 years, in 1, 2, 3 years, they are all millionaires and billionaires. While Cameroonians are only becoming poorer every day. The statistics show 7 million Cameroonians. In every 10 years, Cameroon is able to create 7 million Cameroonians. Mr. Liu, in other developing society, it is a pride to see that every year you are able to create at least 30 to 40 millionaires in your country, because that tells you the amount of GDP that you can reach every year. But in our private sector, Mr. Liu, when you come back to the same issue of water, must it only be the government managing that sector? Why can it not be opened? Where individuals go back to our roads we gave here to Satom, the government, the same government, after using the taxpayers' money, they chopped the money. Satom to chop its own money, and they left us a third-hand great road which is being repairable every time and every second with heavy traffic. Mr. Liu, this is regressing the people behind. So you realize that if we are not able to have a deep think and make the right decisions, because at what it stands today, Mr. Liu, in Cameroon, it's almost becoming a way of life. Cameroonians have been intoxicated with beer that they cannot even reason to even come and say, but what is really happening? Because it doesn't add up here, to be honestly speaking. You look at Malians, as illiterate they are able to make a good decision and say, no, this is what we want. Cameroonians don't even know what they want. Mr. Lord, some things are very easy for us to understand. Where is our money going to? How much is the resources of our country? How is it being used? A society with no accountability, Mr. Liu, is witchcraft.
Okay.
No one gives an account for what they do.
Yeah, Suleiman, should we in the 21st century be talking about water shortage in most of our communities today? What would account for that?
Yeah, I think when you look at our community, let's go back to the days of the British. Why did the government kill PowerCam? PowerCam was used by Yoke to supply light. Why did they destroy PowerCam? Why did they not go to Menchum and develop a good power station there? But they prefer to centralize everything only in Yaoundé under one structure called SONER. And that is where all the policies have been failing, all the decision making have been failing. Because it's being controlled by one person, one structure that cannot be challenged. Nobody has the authority to challenge that person, that structure, only government. But we have abundant rain in this country. We have abundant waters in this country that will give water to every house in this country. But in Cameroon, no sir. Everything has been centralized. Only in we want a structure. They change it from power or to what? I mean, the whole thing is just rubbish. The government does not even know what it's doing. Policy making in this country is our greatest headache in this country.
Yeah, is it really the government? Let's take the case of Biya. I remember that seemingly several money has been given for water supply in the town of Biya. We have water all around Biya, but consistently the population of Biya is not.
Why is the government not following up? Why can you give money without checking what was the money used for? You give money and you just sit behind? No. When you give money, you follow up to see whether the agenda of that money has been judiciously used for the purpose for which it was intended. When you just give money and you stay and everything along the wayside, people chop the money, policy making. And again, the barons of FACO division and those in your conniving to chop the money, and nobody is talking. Nobody's talking because people don't check what they give out. So you see the whole thing. Mr. Leo, let me tell you something. Policy making in this country is a total failure. We have failed. We have failed and we continue to fail. Look at Lompanga, look at Mvele, look what JAVIS was saying. Nangai Boko. All everything. I mean, what are you talking in this country? If infrastructure wise, we are finished. Look at Banga, Jombe, up to Bafusam Road is finished. Only accident. Yaoundé Douala Road, accident because of poor roads. Infrastructure wise, we are finished in this country. And yet, we are talking about the emergence of 2035. Well, I don't know whether it is an illusion or whether we are dreaming, whether this thing will come to reality. I mean, it's not, to me, it's not something you can actually ascertain that is going to work.
Yeah, many persons are asking the question, when we talk of priority for the people that is not healthy cannot develop the nation now. If the basic necessity, which is water, is not available, is it also to say that we are not giving priority to what is most needed?
Sure, Mr. Liu, sure. The water is
life.
Science students will call it a universal solvent. Is that thing that is all over? Is that thing that anything that is as powerful, water kills that thing? But now, if we today, that is why I'm saying that there are people who want to watch this program, Mr. Liu, like those who come from the poor, Mr. the way Prince comes from. They cannot because there's no light. Now, the question we should be asking ourselves, it shows that we have misplaced priorities. Not that the people, or not that the government cannot afford. We have, from the Minister of Water and Energy to regional to divisional delegates that have to ensure that each village has light. The question you should have asked, or I could ask maybe somebody who say divisional delegate for water and energy, maybe say Ndonga Mantunes, what is he taking his salary for? What is he paid for? What is he doing? Because the people do not have light. Now, if you're going to an area where there is no light, here you're paid. It's as if they're paying you for a job you're doing nothing. Yet you take a salary for what you're not doing.
There's water. Tell you that there's water.
No, yeah. There is water. To what extent, Mr. Liu? Those things, water is not actually in its good quantity. He's from Kumba. So I've been in Kumba around Kosala. When you go to Kosala, they drink well. That's what they drink in Kosala. Yeah. The people actually drink well. They have well that they've preserved. They drink well. And water is being sold. Even in Douala, water is sold. Why? Because the water, which is something very normal that Cameroonians are supposed to have in abundance, is still very precious. So we start asking ourselves, like Mr. BAKO said, I think it's an issue of the policy. It's an issue of who is at the top. Because Camerooners of today, Mr. Liu, when they tell you, for instance, that a minister has taken billions, those billions are enough to give a whole village water. Those billions that the minister embezzles is enough to give a whole community electricity. Now, it shows that we have people who have their personal priorities. I know of a former parliamentarian who took water to his cattle ranch, actually asked that his community needed water and gave a name. Mm-hmm. That the people need water, and this water was diverted and taken to his cattle ranch, and his cows used to come and drink. That's the truth. So we have people who do not love Cameroon. There are areas, if you go for instance like in Fiko, Mr. Liu, you will discover that in the center of the town, say Suza, people may not actually have good light or pipe on water, When you go into the Nians, you go to those villages where you have the big guns, like the Dipanda Mueles, those big guns that very far in Bonalea, there is light 24/7 in the house. There's pipe on. It means that the problem in Cameroon is some few individuals live in affluence and they care very little what the common man goes through. Because these big guns in all over Cameroon, it's not only an issue of the Northwest and the Southwest, all over Cameroon. As you guys are complaining that you have power shortage, they have light in their houses. As you complain that you do not have water to drink, they have water. So why should you touch them? That's where the problem is.
Okay, but if the problem is over centralization, like you are saying, that is Yaoundé that is deciding on who gets water and light, let's look at the respective municipalities of the nation. Why, if actually water is an issue, why not prioritize resources towards the provision of water? For example, let's take Biya, that if I have a billion francs CFA as my budget for the year, instead of getting into other issues, why not prioritize the provision of water? The same for Kumba. And, yes.
The OT is allocation of resources.
Yes.
Mr. Leo, let me again spell this out. Institutions or organizations are ruled by what we call policies and procedures, P&Ps. And P&Ps are designed by workers in that company based on priorities. And it is these policies and procedures that makes you not to act emotionally. It guides, it keeps your emotions away. For example, if you are a mayor, what are your priorities? And if you are working in the council, who do you report to? When you report to, who takes charge of following that complaint was handled? Now, these are policies and procedures. There's someone that follows this policy, and there's someone that polices you to ensure that you respect that policy. In terms of the way that if you fail, you are failing based on what has been stated, that when you come to power, the priority is water. And if you cannot supply water, the people will charge you. But in Cameroon and in all the other municipalities, we don't have policies and procedures, clear policies and procedures. When you come to work, for example, where do you start? You sign in. When you sign in, what do? You go to your computer and look at your agenda for the day. When you look at your agenda for the day, what do? You report to this office. These are policies and procedures that we have, but it does not exist in our municipalities. Biya, for example, has what we call confined and unconfined aquifer. An aquifer contains water, which water comes out from the discharge zone. Look at the entire Biya. Biya should not be even talking about water. Biya should be called the city of water in terms of its strategic location. But how are these resources being managed? They are not being managed well because the leaders in these municipalities look at the top. So when it's dirty up, it cannot be cleared down. Everybody who comes in, look at, Master, that man is doing for that sign. Let me do my own here. Nobody clears follow that procedure. Now, if the people who are supposed to ensure that these people follow this policy and procedure remain the beer drinkers, nothing will be existing. Nothing will be followed. So to me, when I look at the situation, all the municipalities, go to Kumbu. When you want to enter Kumbu, you look at water comes out from the rock. That's what we call aquifer. Water comes out. These are channels that you can just develop it and supply water to the community. But it's not being done. Why? Because the people feel like more should be channeled on projects that will give them money to develop their houses, to send their children to school, and the people to acquire. Now, if the people decide to take their destiny into their hand, does the people actually know the function of these leaders? That's the first question. Because if they don't know the function, they will police them. Let me tell you, it's difficult to police Mr. Biya, but it's not difficult to police the mayor of Biya. It's not difficult. Because I elected the mayor of Biya. It's very easy for me to get to the council and say what's happening. So if these people start from that grassroots, start policing each municipality, you go to your mayor and your constituency, start policing them. Mr. Leo, there will be a bit of change from this perspective, and things start moving. They start feeling the heat from because this level.
If let's look at water and
electricity.
If a mayor says I have 5 years in power, and then in this within these 5 years, I make sure that I come up with 5 solar energy plants in some villages. To some extent, it's going to help the situation.
It's going to help.
Yes, or provide water. But do you think that it is also because is it that they don't know, or is because it is not a priority to them?
I tell you, like I said, a society without accountability promotes witchcraft. Because there's no accountability in all these areas that we have mentioned. Nobody gives an account on what and how they do things. The people are not consulted back on what the leaders or the people who have been put there to represent the plights of that community. They don't give a, they don't even communicate with the people. That's what I tell you. You cannot have leaders who don't communicate with the community. So when a head becomes bigger, it's another sign of insanity or madness. That is what we have in Cameroon. We have very big heads with very tiny bodies. You cannot imagine ministers, leaders that live like well-fed cows, and then you find their children living like very pale cows that have lived in desert for many years. So you come to realize that, Mr. Leo, like I have been saying, is that it is easy that it will shock many Cameroonians. We don't need 10 years, 20 years to develop this country. When they talk about 2035 emergence, it's even too far. Just have a goodwill for your people. Within a year, Cameroonians themselves will testify. Within 2 years, Cameroonians will be going on the street celebrating that they are doing well. So leadership is evidence. You should be able, at the end of the day, Mr. Leo, to have a legacy that when you are not there tomorrow, whoever you groom know the direction in which the country is already gearing to. So they pick up easily even while you are there. And that is why I kept saying that we complain a lot about the old people, which is true. But I was talking about creating a balance. How do these old people groom young people who will succeed them? Till today in Cameroon, we don't have any succession. We should not even have one. Like the case we are seeing today in Ivory Coast, where the prime minister, any person who gets there dies. Any person who gets there, that we are not. Leadership should be able to grow and groom many other young leaders, where the country does not need to stress to choose who next should lead them. And this is what I'm talking about. So our leadership in Cameroon, Mr. Leo, has been a failure because it has no succession and it has not created a vacancy for growth. Cameroon does not create room for people to grow. It kills people. It kills its own best. Get up today and say you want to do right in this current system, you'll be eliminated. Let's take a good look at Paul Eric Kinge. His example will live like that of Magufuli. An individual who has set example. You don't need to overstress. His evidences, you can pick them, Mr. Leo, and count them and measure them and know that this is the impact this man has been able to create. This is the legacy he has been. Whoever is coming behind him has a challenge in his hand. In this country, it's not the same. If another enters, whether it's a prime minister, whether it's a minister of communication, whether it's a minister of public works, it's the same footstep because there is no evidence of the people at heart. You have lost contact. That the people you are in contact with are not people you should be in contact with because they are not people concerned. They are not Cameroonians. Cameroonians are us. We don't know them, Mr. Leo. We have no contact with them, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Greetings, my media prime. I have increased my volume to 100, but yet can't get you people. Well, issue of volume. I don't know where you're writing us from, but usually some areas have this issue. It has to do with their cable distributor who has to fix that. Good evening. Bambili and water is a very delicate problem. It's only in Bambili that pipe-borne water looks like mud water. It's Godi Zabra writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Cameroon, a country which has many divisions after the names of a river, not less than 25 waterfalls which could be exploited. And mind you, the water should not be a problem. The problem is the government and the policy changes demanded by the IMF, as our country is said to be poor and unable to pay its debts. Zain is writing from Biya. Great job, Mr. Leo. The problem in Cameroon and Africa leadership is greed and resources. We have in Cameroon 1 billion times more than that of the United Arab Emirates, but the level of development in the United Arab Emirates, Cameroon will never have in the next 100 years. Greetings, Mr. Liu and the panelists. And any normal thinking person knows that the regime has failed, and worst of all is that they are not even ashamed. Tebo is writing from Biya. Good evening to you, Tebo. This is Ngole Eugene from Nyom in Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and to the powerful panelists. To me, looking at your topic, I think the kangaroo system is failing because of his forerunners do not follow up projects in this country. Look at the road going to Bangem that has ere long been signed that it start, but whereas it is not. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo and panelists. I love your program, but wonder how a country like Cameroon with strong legislative arm that may make laws that only favors them. God is watching. Time will tell. Charles is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, Charles. Good evening in the studio. This is for me, Frederick from Bamenda. Biya regime has failed terribly. I don't know how Cameroon will emerge in 2035. It's 14 years left, but we can't even print a single document in Bamenda town because of low voltage, no water to drink. In fact, Cameroon is not serious. Bonsoir, Monsieur Liu et à tout le plateau. Ce thème est très important car je ne comprends pas comment c'est en saison de pluie que les coupures d'électricité sont de plus en plus fréquents et aussi les coupures d'eau. Ce régime Biya ne fait aucun travail. Lino d'Invoque Betty. Bonsoir à vous, Lino. Good evening to you, Mr. Leo, and the crew on board. I wonder if the government actually have a scale of preference in executing its projects. Basic needs are not a major concern to this government. The government wants to reach stage 4 of Rosto's model of economic development without going through stage 1, 2, and 3. Impossible. Mbeke Elvis, writing from Mamfe. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Cameroon's underdevelopment for decades has numerous tentacles that can't be tackled one by one. The magic to solve Cameroon's underdevelopment problem is a structural change in the domain of leadership. Please, could you run a program on change management? This will enhance the knowledge of citizens and they will preach change for the betterment of all. Thanks, Paul San, writing from Germany. Good evening to you, Pox. You guys in the studio. Paul Biya and its men have failed. Kenji Litani, writing from Limbe. Good evening, Mr. Liu and other panelists. You guys are saying very interesting and sensitive issues in the program. I personally think that the issue of electricity, water, and road infrastructure in Cameroon is really a call for concern. Let the powers that be do something about it. I also think that politics and the systems of education Cameroonians go through the root causes of all this. Let those in power avoid mixing politics with development. I am your humble participant all the way from Mokolo in far north, a region of the Republic of Cameroon. Kong Wilson Mbangse, writing from Mokolo there. Now, Mr. Suleman, the healthcare system also in Cameroon is also very preoccupying. Reasons why most of our very critical situations have to be flown out of the country.
Yeah, I think when it comes to healthcare, they say health is wealth. That's what the Englishman says. And I know that today in Cameroon, our health system has been dilapidated. It is only going backward. Despite all the so-called reference hospitals that have been built or constructed. Today our hospitals have become mere consulting clinics without drugs and equipment. If you go to the hospital today, what do you see like that? If you don't have money, you die. That humanitarian service of government is no longer there. It's money that counts.
Yeah, but there, who do you blame? You blame the doctors and the nurses?
No.
Okay.
The government does not provide resources for the common man. The government only provides resources for government to make money in the hospital. Yes. That's why, see, if you don't have money to buy drugs, you die. If you don't have money for theater, you die. Because you must pay for these services. That humanitarian service is no longer there. That aspect of government, that social amenity that we assume that government provides for the people when they're in problem, is no longer in our hospitals. That's why it has become mere consulting clinic without drugs and equipment. Only money counts. If you don't have money, you just have to die. That's all. If you go to a hospital today, the first thing, who is going to pay a bill? If you say you don't have money, forget it. You are counting your days. So I think when it comes to hospitals, No matter all the noise that the government has done about construction of hospitals, building of hospitals, Chantal Biya's foundation taking care of this, they are all just a farce. They're masquerades, all. But if it comes to reality of things, people are dying in insurmountable numbers in this country because of poor health services. Because the health services are not there to protect, promote, and defend the interests of the common man. And so, the question to us: where is our taxpayers' money going? Where is the money we are paying for tax going? That the government cannot provide for the common man in the hospital, at least for him to survive. It's not there. So virtually everything is money, money, money. Mr. Kum, as far as social services are concerned in this country, especially the health sector, I think it's a non-starter. We're wasting our time.
Okay, it's a non-starter. We are just wasting our time. I will use this opportunity to thank those who have sent us something to help our IDPs. I said last week that I was launching a plea to you all who are watching the program that I've received many pleas from IDPs in Tico and some persons in the prisons and some two mamas from Bomenda who are asking me to assist them. I, as a person, I don't have the money to assist them, and I was asking that you all out there should help me, to join me so that we can help them. I want to say thank you to you, Collins Benkum Ndosa. I've received what you sent, and also want to say thank you to you, Mama Rebecca, who sent something, and to you, Emmanuel, who sent something also. We also want to say thank you to you, this name Chupulando. Thank you very much, everybody. For those who are sending something, please, the names are going to be read out by the end of the collect, and the sums are going to also be read out for us to know how much came in and how much we are taking to the IDB. So please, if you think that you can help us, just join, send something for 1 or 2 persons, just to help them living in very difficult conditions. Now, we are talking about the health situation, which is also not good. Is it an issue of not known priority of the state? We also are getting information that a call has been made for an investigation into how the funds allocated for COVID to be made public, so that clarity is given. Is it to say that maybe the state is setting policies and that those that are working within the domain are siphoning the monies? We know about what happened with money that was made available to fight HIV and AIDS.
Yeah, Mr. Liu, I think that the whole issue boils down to the leader. I want to feel that in the days of Aiju, I may not have lived his days, but stories that have been told. If you go to a school, for instance, like GBHS Campbell, we're made to understand that he personally supervised the construction of our school. When I was in the dormitory, he came there to see how the construction was going. At times, you do not only leave money in the hands of persons, you also ensure that you follow up to see how the people are using the money. If not, you want to ask me how an individual, like the money that was discovered with Ega Aleme Bengo, you want to ask yourself how a minister amassed such wealth to that level. It means that the follow-up is an issue. Now, Mr. Liu, talking about health, I'm saying that most of these things, some of us are saying it because we've lived in urban areas. I was discussing with a primary school teacher, and he told me that when they were going to mark the first school leaving certificate, he got up in the hall and said, when you ask the children, when you're sick, where do you go to? You say hospital. And you say all of us should limit to the hospital. I think the question is, there is an answer that is missing. He said you should bring a herbalist inside. There are villages where people have never seen a hospital, where when you're sick, they know that they take you to one mama who grinds fever grass and get some concussions to give you to drink, and it cures you. So health in Cameroon, we are still very far from it, Mr. Liu. Come even to town, in Douala, for instance. There are hospitals that will not call names. That once you go to, no matter how sick you are, it's a public hospital. No matter how sick you are, no matter your condition, they send you to where they do deposit and consultations. You go and finish there before they even look at your case. And at times, I start asking myself whether these people actually work because they are forced to, or they have this, they want to really save lives. Because I believe that the ethics of a medic is save life first. When you look at the way our medics in Cameroon work, I ask myself if I thought they were trained. Because the first thing is their money. They tell you, go and consult, go and pay your consultation, things like that. So health, I will not say it's a neglect. We are not neglecting health in Cameroon. It's just an issue of the top. The whole top has a problem. Because till now, we should not be talking about hospitals or clinics in Cameroon. We should not be talking about electricity. Mr. BAKO cited an example of Paul Erikinge, the mayor of Njombe Penja, may so rest in peace. When he died, I actually went to Njombe. You don't need, like he said, you don't need to watch a report to know who this man was. The people testify. They will tell you, après Jésus-Christ, c'est Paul Erikinge. The evidences are there. It means that there are local administrators, like mayors, Mr. Liu, like parliamentarians, who go beyond, they even sacrifice their personal income to ensure that some of these basic necessities come to their people. But the general thing is, every serious government, Mr. Liu, should ensure that its citizens get health. A hospital is a basic necessity. We know doctors, when you read the General Polo, for instance, where Jufri Chosa uses his pilgrims to paint a picture of how the world is today, you will discover that the doctor of physics will always send his patients to a particular hospital, not because he actually had love for the patients. That's what our doctors do. When you go to a hospital, they tell you, okay, you go get your drugs here. This is where they sell good drugs. And we know what is going on. Those are their clinics in the quarters. So I feel that the issue is from the top, Mr. Liu. Our doctors, even those who are in hospitals, need to sit up. The first thing is to save human life. And it's not about money. We have had situations where a lady died here. The lady who had twins, that was operated because when she came in, the doctor was like somehow, and a passerby had to look for a blade, and this lady was operated and they died alongside the twins. Those are some of the things I've been seeing. The issue to me is not actually the lack of it, is the top.
Okay.
There should be a follow-up.
There should be a follow-up. Good evening, Mr. Liu. With the level of suffering in this country, I wonder whether the leaders of this country are living elsewhere or in space. Bang Kwene, writing from Bomenda. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The healthcare system is a disgraceful crisis, and not only are the ethical treatments of the health care workers, who are supposed to be some of the most polite people, have become exceedingly rude, but also the shortage of drugs, but also that of necessary equipment such as respirators and others. You give you an example. The incidence of typhoid in Biya will always be high because there is no good drinking water. Absence of light will lead to more death since respirators cannot work. Also, the holistic and traditional medicine has been abandoned in favor of Western drugs. Hospitals have become a business to fill the government coffers, given shortage of funds because of the crisis and drop in crude oil prices in. Okay, now some persons are also complaining about the attitude of most of these medical personnel, nurses and the doctors. Isn't it also because of what they get as paycheck at the end of the month? They are not well taken care of, and most medical doctors, once they have the green light, most of them leave the country. Is that not also where the problem is?
Yeah, the problem comes through with payment and the way in which the opportunities or facilities that is at their disposal. And in this regard, like I said, and I will always repeat it, it's just an issue of follow-up and an issue of who do they report to and which channel they report, Mr. Liu. We live in a country where we pay emphasis more on politics than on human lives. We live in an area where we believe that we can get the votes on paper than we get the people rally to cast the ballot. We live in an area because if we actually believe that the people have that mandate to give to the people, to give to leaders, they will be taken care of. They will have electricity, they will have water, they will have all the basic needs. But if you live in an area where you feel like We don't need their vote. All we need is just to call an election and we have the result on paper. Then there is no need to provide the electricity. There's no need to provide the light. The doctors are suffering now. Why are they suffering? It's because the regional delegates, we have 10 regions, Mr. Liu. These 10 regions have 10 regional delegates of health. Let's be clear. We have divisions. These divisions have divisional delegates of health. We have subdivisions. These subdivisions have subdivisional delegates of health. Now, the subdivisional delegates of health reports to the divisional delegate of health, who reports to the regional delegate of health, who reports to the Minister of Public Health, who reports now to who? The Parliament. The Parliament now come for questioning who do they carry the complaints to. They make laws. But how often does the Parliament probe in the health sector of Cameroon? I mean, put the minister like this on the balance.
But Honorable Nietzsche has been taking the...
No, I'm talking about the Parliament as a whole. I'm not talking about an MP as a whole. I'm talking about the Parliament. These are not political issues. Asking for basic hospital needs, it's not political issues. Example, Mr. Let me give another example. Come to where we are in Douala, in Bonamusa the year. Go to the hospitals. Government hospitals. It will tell you that emphasis are not being paid to look at the facilities, the drugs that were supplied to the hospitals. Were they accurately used? If they were not used, how? Look at COVID. A clear example, I'm talking about reporting structure. It's the problem of reporting. It's not even the problem of managing resources. Mr. Low, rice were distributed for us to fight COVID during confinement. Nobody knows where it went to. Rice, bags of rice, we saw it on news and we reported it. Come to vaccines. How vaccines we have been told that vaccine will be administered. The population is not being sensitized by the health facilities as of the importance of this vaccine and the rest. Health ministry is still not working. Now the chain of the regional delegation to divisional delegation, the regional delegate, and equally to the Minister of Public Health, it has an issue. If we can look at this chain of reporting and tell us that we need probe into how all these sectors are operating, it will help. Equally in the issue of doctors not being well paid or not.
At the basic level, we have district medical officers.
We have district medical officers.
District
medical officers. Look at the district medical officers. Again, they report to who? If they write their reports, who takes their reports to the center? Who takes their report from the center now to the top to implement it? It's not there. It cut across all the sectors, all the different ministries.
But I'm looking more about the healthcare, the service delivery.
Mr. Leo, service deliveries cannot come effectively. They say if a hungry man cannot well provide service, if you're hungry, if you're hungry, you either look for an alternative way to go and steal from a neighbor and eat. You must survive. And the same thing with the health sector. The doctors are not well paid. The doctors don't have the facilities of research. Where did they turn to? They turned by creating their own private clinic and move clients. And so it's just it's a chain.
ATEM BAKO, let us look at the efforts that are made to reconstruct our roads. Are you very comfortable? Is there a problem with it? What is lacking? How do we explain that a major axis like what links the stretch between Douala and Bafoussam that is actually very, very dense in traffic, Douala Yaoundé, is still in the image of what it was more than 20-30 years ago?
Mr. Liu, the thing about Cameroon is that politics has engulfed everything and every sector. That makes people to operate in their capacity and giving out the best efficiency very impossible at the end of the day. If we look at our roads, the public, how will I put it, you look at the public sector of our road development, you come to realize that the Minister of Public Works, as a matter of fact, Mr. Liu, just being that it is a system, normally should have been brought in for questioning. Because if you look at the amount of persons that die each year due to road accident, we should not even talk about COVID in Cameroon. We have about 1,200 persons that die each year in Cameroon due to road accidents. Let us not compare how much we spend to do roads in Cameroon. Putting that aside alone, we have engineers who can build us good roads. that fits the standards of our kind of vehicles we have here. We still take our road contracts and we give to foreign organizations to do us roads. And the same administrators that sit out these contracts tend to embezzle from this very contract, which they are calling an international body to fix them a road. It makes the thing become very impossible, because, Mr. Leo, if you look at the cases of accidents that takes place every day on these roads, you ask yourself, who is responsible? Who is accountable for all of those deaths? The answer is nobody. We have a problem in Cameroon of managing problems. We only come to manage a problem because there is an existing problem. We don't go beyond not having to respond when there's a problem, but improve the life standard of the people.
We act in anticipation. We don't act in anticipation. There's no proactivity here.
That is exactly my point. So now, before I go directly to that your question, just permit me to just go back. Let's look at this light. The SONEL before was owned by an American firm, which Cameroon government had a percentage in it. After this, we have now the NOEL, which is owned by a British firm, which the British have 55%, and the Cameroon government have 46%. 46%. Is it 56%? Cameroon government has 44%. That is why light is very expensive in our country. We have everything to make life become affordable, life become a jovial one where Cameroon can compete with other developing nations. How do you want to generate electricity when there are all means? You go to Europe, you have wind turbines, you have solar, you have nuclear power, you have gas. We have everything combined where other countries do not have, like Dubai, which is a desert, Libya, which is a desert, Saudi Arabia, which is a desert, Israel, which is a desert. But all of them have outgrown that level of road construction, until Dubai now is talking of how they can link an underground train that can leave Dubai to India in less than 2 hours, from Abu Dhabi to the main center in less than 12 minutes. How they have gone past the level of what you see us here with ditches, potholes on the road that will stay there for months and for years, until we have had very horrific accidents on those roads. That is when the government now responds. So you come to realize that when we talk about health, we don't only talk about the medical sector, we talk about roads, because people are using those roads every day. Roads are tiny. At one point, the government will get up and say they want to do road construction. They will break down properties of people, ask people to leave the road, and at the end of the construction of the road, you turn back and ask yourself, is this a road these people wanted to construct? Because you look at the roads, you don't even see. If 2 bikes are passing with 1 taxi, the road is already occupied, so there must be already traffic. So it comes back to what I'm saying, that Mr. Leo, at the end of the day, it seems as if we're having principalities and powers that are ruling us in a country where I'm not really much against old people, because we have value for them, and we know that they are a great resources in our own nation, because we have a lot to benefit also from them. But how do you, for example, we have people in the country of law where 55 years is an age of retirement in this country, but the people we find in power who are above 80s and above 70s seem to be principalities and powers that are ruling this nation, which are not at the level of Cameroonians. So you come to realize that, Mr. Liu, the thing which you talk about, the road development in Cameroon, it all comes back to politics. To Cameco, to Cameroon Airlines, it has only been embezzlement. You talk about the same roads here. The ring road leading from which area to Nigeria was given to another foreign firm. Where are our own engineers? Where at the end of the day, if the man is not able to deliver the job, he comes back to the quarter, you ask him what happened. But these people, we don't even know them. So it becomes very challenging, Mr. Leo, when you look at, like I cited, the amount of persons that die every year. That was shown on CRTV the other day, and that analysis was not properly made. That was just a barest minimum on how much people die every year on road accidents. So you come to realize that a country that has value for human lives would determine how much he's able to protect one citizen in his country. We saw in America where an American was kidnapped and was taken to one other country. It was taken rather to Nigeria, to be precise. And the American government did everything to rescue that one life. In Cameroon, if a Cameroonian is kidnapped, you are on your own. Nobody value it comes back, because at the end of the day, if we cannot protect and develop our human resources, then we don't have any value. We don't have any progress. We cannot make forward, because the way the system is designed, it's a system, Mr. Liu. I use that word. It's a system. And this system, like I said, did not derive from the Cameroonians themselves. Okay. This is a foreign system which the Cameroonians are adopting. And that is why you realize that the leaders do not tend to favor the development of their own nations. You talk about health. When they are sick, they take a plane and go abroad. We saw with Ameke Bakayoko in Ivory Coast. From France to Germany, that's where he died. So how does it paint the image of us Cameroonians that we in Cameroon, we don't have a good health sector? Still coming back again to the light issue. Look at what British is doing today with the NOEL in Cameroon. This is all management. There are two situations when you have foreign organizations coming to manage situations for you and coming to improve your life. We have never had in Cameroon where we hear the British came for reparation, for example. They built all schools. They put all oxygen in all our hospitals, ambulances, for both roads and both for emergency cases. We don't have them. So you come to realize that we are only managing. That is the way. That's the level they have kept Cameroon. And Cameroon, you ask anybody in Cameroon, say I'm managing. Nobody says I'm doing well. I'm managing. So it is a condition in which they have reduced the Cameroonians.
We are all managers in Cameroon. Hello, Mr. Liu. Cameroon would do extremely well if the government ensures that at least 70% of the graduates are employed properly, 50% of youths are willing to work are supported, retired persons are supported with their pensions. Failing to do this, Cameroon will find it difficult to grow. Okay, good evening to you. Once again, in there from Germany. I'm fine, sir. What about good evening? Don't know what you mean by that. Good evening to you, Leo, and the panelists. Cameroon does not have leaders, but bosses. Leaders put the interests of their followers first, but bosses put their own interests first. That's why the issue of accountability does not exist in the country. People embezzle public funds and are locked up in prisons, but the public is not informed of any recovery made. It's a regime of dictatorship, and it has failed woefully. Albert is writing from Bomenda. Good evening, Mr. Leo. The medical system in Cameroon has a big problem. The doctors and nurses do not work but look for money from people. Something should be done. Delhi Ekema writing from Biya. Good evening to you, Delhi. Talking about health, there are no good health facilities in our country, and also if art students are able to pass medical concourse and go to provide medical schools, then what do you expect to have from somebody who had no zeal for medicine? Honorable Ngule from Biya. Okay. Asa Nelson says, writing from Douala, Mr. Leo, this regime has completely failed us. The people in place that can change the situation of this country think first of themselves and think less of the people. Water is a necessity, but leaders of this country can't give us drinking or water. The healthcare issue in Cameroon is terrible. Cameroonians now prefer to drink Guinness and Okongobong leaves when sick of typhoid because drugs are too expensive. Godi Zabra writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu and panelists at the studio. You people are doing good job there. Kudos. Atanas are writing from you do not tell us where you're writing from, Atanas. My brother, us working as nurse, we are doing it for free. Like I have been working as a volunteer nurse since 2012, and we, the volunteer nurses, are more than state employed. After writing a concours to be trained, after training you write another concours to be employed. Our system is bad. God help us. Are writing from Biya. Now, all of this, almost everybody is raising the issue of the inability to follow up, supervise what is being done as projects and how supervising how money is being spent. Are we saying that the government is not doing enough to fight corruption, that is ensuring that whatever is allocated for a project is judiciously used?
Sako, I think corruption is a canker one in this country. It's mere mentioning does not elicit any surprise again.
Okay.
If you tell somebody that you are corrupt somebody, it doesn't mean anything to anybody in this country because it's part of the system.
It's a new normal.
It's just part of the system. No, it's not a crime. It's not a crime. They even told you that use your head. That's what they tell you, use your head.
So what
I'm saying is that if it's a responsible government, when you give out contract, you follow up the contract. As Javi has said, follow up is a problem. If there's nobody to follow up the contract, it's going to end in futility, wasted contract. Nobody is there to supervise. Just like you have a child, you're in America. If you give a child, he's complaining that the house is leaking. You are sending money every day. One day you leave America to come and check whether this money I'm giving this child is judicially used for the purpose for which it's intended. But here, no, sir. First of all, the way even you get the contract to do the job is another problem. 15% kickback has already gone. The person will not do it the way it's supposed to be done. And nobody is there to follow. All at the end of the day, they send inspectors to come and inspect the contract. The inspector is coming, his own money has been given to him in his pocket. It's already there for him. So he comes, he doing blah, 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 everything is fine. He just like his final report and goes him back to your own day. At the end of the day, the thing collapses and nobody complains again. I mean, in this country, Mr. Kum, everything is bad. Infrastructure-wise is the worst. Go to Ngaundere Garwa Road. Oh, you cry. You take almost about 11 to 12 hours from Ngaundere Garwa. The road is dangerous. Look, that thing that collapsed in the northwest region, in the northwest. Nobody's even talking about how to build, how to already do something, and nobody's talking. Look at the Yaoundé Douala Road. Look at no. Social services in this country is totally bankrupt. It's finished. Everybody is just talk. The Minister of Works, he does not even have the powers to take vital decisions without consulting the presidency. Everything is being oozed out from the presidency for him to do. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand how the system works. You have all original delegates and what have you, but yet at the end of the day, things are not working. Things are not working. You see how nurses at the end of the day, they go and open their small hospital in their houses. They are pilfering of drugs in the hospital, keeping the houses. They are selling it. They are doing their DNC. They are doing what all the rubbish are doing. Nobody is cares. So midwives are just doing that. Mr. Kum, this follow-up thing, if it is not done in the system, policy making, decision making, and execution is the problem of this kind of government. And if this government does not sit up, I am afraid we are heading towards abyss of destruction.
Okay, abyss of.
Mr. Just to add briefly, see, when you have a system where you put in a vehicle and you don't use that vehicle, you will not do a follow-up. If the ministers were going to our hospitals, if the head of state like Magufuli did one time ago and went to hospitals around, and sometimes he closed the hospital, dismissed all the workers and gave 1 month for that hospital to be built, and he was bailed. And when he was sick, he was hospitalized inside Dar es Salaam before he was flown to Kenya, and in Kenya they sent him back. He died along the way when he was to be attended to fully in Dar es Salaam. So if you had that system where you could go to these hospitals, there will be that follow-up. But the fact that nobody cares, nobody goes to the hospitals, there's no follow-up.
Okay, there's no follow-up. We are facing the issue of corruption. Seemingly nothing, there is no follow-up, nobody supervises how this is done. But I would want to say that nobody supervises, because before a project is received, there are checks, there are teams that come from the ministry, either from at the regional level and then from the central level in Yaoundé, to actually sign that this project is so we ask the question whether they were sincere in what they were doing. But isn't it also an issue of competence? That is, the competent persons put at the respective offices charged with realizing most of the projects in Cameroon. I'm talking about meritocracy here.
Sure, Mr. Leo, many a time people get contracts because they can lobby well. Many a time people get contracts because they have relations. I followed closely the Minister of Public Works. I was taken aback that he asked a Chinese worker at Japoma Stadium, mais qui vous a donné ce contrat?
No, it was along the road around Yassa.
Thank you very much. I was with him because it was a whole tray. I was part of the convoy I was covering. And I asked, when you have a minister who is asking a Chinese contractor who has a very big contract, the destiny of the country, because Cameroon remains the life wire or rather Douala remains the life wire of Cameroon. Even in history tells us that once Douala was captured, the Germans were kicked out of Cameroon. Now, when you have a minister who should ask that kind of a question, Mr. Liu, it starts telling you that at times contracts are given even without his knowledge. It starts telling you that we have people who have other relationships, who go play their games maybe at Yaoundé end. Before you know it, they already have a contract. There are people who've gotten up in their neighborhoods. A case in point is in Bonaberi. They did not save them any notice that, okay, leave, but they get up the next morning. One rich man comes and says, okay, everybody is leaving. At times,
300 families had to leave. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. So at times they come only in the night and they tell you, all of you are quitting tonight.
Yes,
so,
but can we stay in line with what I'm asking? I'm talking about competence in what we have been charged to give. Are we selected because we merit, or it's like you said, people lobby?
Sure, Mr. Leo, Cameroon is one of those countries whereby meritocracy has been sacrificed at the altar of godfatherism. At times, you do not do something because you actually know it. It depends who you know. It depends who you can lobby with. Because we have contractors who have more than, say, 10 contracts at the same time. There are contractors in Cameroon whose offices are in their briefcases. The person doesn't have anything. His equipment is that A4 paper he has. He presents because he has relations to one minister somewhere, and the next day you're given a contract. And those are some of the things that are killing. And the bottom line of everything, Mr. Leo, remains the follow-up.
Okay.
Follow-up in everything is important. That is why, for instance, let me take the case of where we are, my Media Prime. You're the director. You are always there, even days that you're not on. You watch your programs online. You want to ensure that this person who was supposed to do this did it. You want to ensure that, okay, this person that did it did not do it this way. That is why even the one way you're having news conference, okay, Prince, you were doing, you understand, there is always this follow-up. So the problem that is killing everything in our country is that lack of follow-up. You can give even somebody who does not have the competence. But now once a person knows that there is a police, like JAVIS said, once a person knows that there is a police behind him to ensure that you do the job. Cameroonians do not wear face masks because they actually like it. When it came up that if you do not wear, you pay 5,000 or you pay 2,000, Cameroonians looked at it, they say, okay, it's preferable I buy a face mask for 500. Many a time people buy face masks. That's why you notice that the face masks at times is sold closest to the police, to where there is the checkpoint. So people are not actually wearing, or people don't wear because they have that fear. I think that the issue is follow-up. It is true we have a commission called the CONAC. But now how serene is a commission? There are people whom we know who have embezzled huge sums of money. So much sums of money that you want to ask yourself where the CONAC was. It is not somebody's private thing. So I believe that if we have a follow-up, if the follow-up is very strong, then we'll have very few of these things.
Okay, you're asking the question whether CONAC is blind to some of these things. Good evening, Mr. Liu. The government of Cameroon don't care about its citizens, even the budget that was given to the government to help its citizens during this difficult time of pandemic was all embezzled by leaders of the regime. Shin Clinton, Ikanyo Berinu, writing from Douala. I'm sure investigations are going to, an audit is going to be done on how that money has been spent. Good evening, Mr. Liu and everyone on the panel. The problem of Cameroon is that of management. I believe Cameroon has the resources to pull herself from poverty, but due to naivety and loss of those in power, we are where we are. We need leaders who will go into office to serve and not be served. How I wish our leaders could copy from the footsteps of John Apombe Magufuli. May God help us. Emmanuel Acha writing from Bomenda. Good evening. Mr. Kumayampa Frank in Bomenda, the Nkwen District Medical Hospital area. New route along Bayele in Martu Nkwen. Bomenda has not got pipe-borne water for at least 6 years now. We are in town. How can you explain this? That is a district medical hospital not having water for 6 years now. I think that something should be done. The administrators in Bomenda should have this information if they were not told, and the medical officers in Bomenda or medical authorities. How do we explain that a hospital runs for 6 years without water?
That's what I'm talking about, the issue of reporting.
It's actually deplorable. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm Derek from Gaundiri. Here, water is the most luxurious commodity. Open wells are more clean than tap water. Electricity too is no better. Atamaya Jean-Claude writing from Cyprus says, good evening, Mr. Leonard and all the panelists on board. The government is not perfect, we all know, but currently climate change is a big challenge that even European countries face. Water bodies are fast drying off and vegetation is soaking up much water too from the environment. The issue of water is real everywhere. In Cyprus, I buy drinking water. Okay, yes, but Cameroon, we have rivers everywhere now. Looking at the government hospitals in our father's land, it is too disheartening. You go to the hospital where in normal case they are to commence treatment before you commence with finance, but there it is payment before treatment, and most at times poor services are rendered. That's to me, I prefer paying millions in a private hospital. Okay, this one says, hello, Mr. Leo. I have, okay, yes, okay. This one reads, good evening, Mr. Leo. Mr. Leo Vitalis are from Dubai. The truth is our leaders don't care about that country. All they care about is what they will have. Come to talk about light. I have been in Dubai for 4 years now. There has never been a day with water or light. Cameroon leaders need prayers. Okay. Greetings, Mr. Leo. A country that has no control over their electricity, water, food sector in no country. The regime has sold also beer is much available than water. Through writing from Bamenda. I just want to say that I want to thank you. Na Aivu Chabajong Alem, I just received something from you, and also from you, Sylvester Kadikri Ngachu, as a token to help our IDPs. Please, if you think that you touch, just join us to reach out to 2-3 mamas who are in their situations in Tiku and in Bomenda and in Biya. Please, nothing is too small to help them. People are asking the question why we listen to the message from Gaundiri. Gaundiri is regional capital of the Adamawa region. It has elites. It has the mayor. It has the governor. It has the SDO, the DOs. Are they not aware of the situation, the water situation? What then is the priority of all of them here?
That's why I think when we started the program, I told you that it's an issue of one, policy. Two, is an issue of people wanting to go into politics to make their gains and not the interest.
Yeah, but politics, if you provide people with water, is that not capital?
Mr. Leo, this is what I said it here, that because we are in an era where we believe we can get the vote on paper and not on ballot box, so providing water is not a necessity.
Yeah, but okay, if you can steal elections, these people are your brothers, they are sisters.
Mr. Leo, the issue, I have a problem. This time I don't blame those leaders, I blame the people in those areas, because they don't know their role and the power they have in their hands. Mr. Leo, let's be clear here. We remember, I think there was a point in time in Biya when the Biya people did not have electricity. Biya town, to be more precise, they did not have electricity for close to a month, and it was counting. And now, they went straight to the governor's office. The women, they rallied to the DO's office. The women rallied and went to the DO's office, and behold, it was solved. Now, if you are in a community, there is no water. You are not. If you are protesting, you are not talking about asking Biya or asking whoever. You are demanding your basic necessity. It is their right and responsibility. It is their constitutional right to rise up and tell the mayor, tell the DO in this area that we need water. That's what I will tell you, Mr. Leo. I will give another example. The people of Baliangi protested in 2007 and in 2013 they had electricity. How do you explain that there's electricity in Bombe Bakundu and Baliangi, which is the biggest town in that area, my 40 don't have electricity? It skipped from Moyoka and went to Bombe Bakundu because there is a senior elite in Bombe Bakundu. I will not call his name. There's a senior elite in Bombe Bakundu who brought electricity in his town, and he skipped from Bombe Bakundu to Kumba, and he bypassed Balangi and the other villages, West to Kumba. Now the Balangi people had to protest until electricity was brought to them. These are concrete examples. Now, if you are living in a locality where there is no water, there is no electricity, you have that constitutional right peacefully to go and meet your divisional or your DO and tell that DO, Mr. DO, what is happening. We need water, we need light. Now, if you cannot do that, you are simply telling these authorities that make away with our money, enjoy our money, because policies and procedures are there. Who help these people to enforce these policies and procedures are the people. So the day the people will rise up, Buya town is still a concrete example, and they now have electricity because of the fact that they stood up. So if we can stand up, the women, if we can stand up in those communities and tell these people we need water, it will be solved.
Okay, good evening to you, Mr. Liu, and the wonderful panelists. When roads are tarred using wheelbarrows and tar cooked inside drums using firewood, what do we expect? We have really tech in this country. Okay, Kwajika.
Really take care.
Yes, take care in this country. Kwajika Nyumbo writing from Mutengene. Hello, Mr. Leo. Please permit me add my voice to this Cameroon issue. A country will definitely do well if the government ensures that the following 4 sectors are constructed and managed properly: hospitals, schools and universities, roads, utilities, electricity and water. If these basic things are provided, the citizens will go about their daily businesses with limited complaints, and at least 70% of the population will be satisfied. Okay, I hope that a kangaroo man is not here to say that people should take notes. Good evening, Mr. Leo. I want to ask a question. Does these ministers and Mr. Biya watch my media prime? Is Akenji writing from Limbe? Good evening, Mr. Leo. I love the program. Cameroon is the only country where everyone is an upcoming herbalist due to medical challenges. This is Banze writing from Kumba. Yes, people have to resort to that now. Hello, Mr. Liu. It's Conrad from New Jersey, USA. The problem of Cameroon is their leaders. The priorities that their individuals benefit than collective or the country. It won't get better with the leaders we have. Embezzlement and corruption have been a daily in Cameroon. Children born in Cameroon think and breathe in corruption. How can a private hospital in Muteng and Mbingu wants to build a route to ease movement into the hospital bed? The council tells them to give them the money so they can build it themselves. The project is currently laying dormant because of that. Yeah, that is part of the bottlenecks you said earlier on. But now, when a country is faced with difficulties, I think that, or some people think, like I do, that agriculture remains the bedrock on which most economies rely. For example, take Israel. They are very, very into all of that. Even the United States, even France is so much into agriculture. We have talked about second generation agriculture in Cameroon for decades, but it is yet to really see the day of light. Yeah?
Mr. Leo, in the US today, Bill Gates has become the largest farm owner. Gaddafi promoted and encouraged farming for all its citizens in Libya, and also sponsored them to begin farming and to develop in that area. We have cited, you just cited also Israel. You see, but in Cameroon is the vice versa. We have more motorbikes than farmers in Cameroon. We have more Okadas than farmers in Cameroon, which should have been our strongest area to develop our economy, if the government could really, honestly promote farming in Cameroon today, Mr. Liu. You see, that's why I still come back to it. It's a very complex topic we are discussing here, though we may reduce it to the questions that you are asking, but it's quite complicated. That's why I began by saying that democracy without full political rights is like a businessman or a business without capital. As long as Africa does not have veto power to make decisions up there in favor of its continent, most African countries will remain with such complaints that we are putting here today at the level and at the mercy of the West. That is why I'm saying that, Mr. Liu, that until we will be granted full independence or we will claim our full political rights, we are going nowhere, because, so to say, we are not independent. We keep having foreign organizations, foreign businesses, foreign policies, foreign organizations, foreign institutions to develop Cameroon. How is that possible? So that is why I said that we have the principalities and powers in our country. People who live in heaven. That's why when they sick, they don't come to the local hospitals, because they are not Cameroonians. That is why you realize that these individuals do not want to know, like JAVIS cited, or follow up. Follow up simply comes back to accountability. You cannot tell me that you need, if a project is assigned, when we talk about accountability, the details on how that money was spent should be based on the evidence of the output of the work. So it's quite easy. The mathematics should not be a very long process where you need to contact this man, then this man needs to contact this man, then this man needs to contact this man. It's just simple. Visit the site, you know what the plan was, and you make your analysis. It's just as simple as that. But Mr. Leo, this is not the case we have here. The heads in Cameroon have become bigger. It's unable to even carry the body. The Cameroonians today are left at the level of compliance. That is why I said that.
Compliance.
From what the examples that JAVIS was citing, Mr. Liu, it is true. Change can come from any angle, but it's quite obvious that change cannot come from above. It can equally come from bottom. So if the people in Cameroon decide today and say, okay, we are not drinking brasserie, let the brasserie close down, it will close down. If the Cameroonians decide today that we are not eating Chinese fish, the Chinese will leave our waters. If the Cameroonians decide that we are not buying any Chinese good, they will pack their thing and we promote our own local made goods here that we find in other countries, that we have national owned banks, national owned companies. In Cameroon today, the private sector is all falling down. So it comes back to what I will still say JAVIS was talking about. It now depends on the people, because the administrators have failed us. We cannot rely on them. It's quite obvious, Mr. Liu. We will not follow them to the grave. It is our position now to take a decision and say, no, we should be able to defend our human rights. We should be able to defend our positions as citizens of this country, belonging to share in the national cake. We need to take those decisions, because you cannot talk about corruption. CONAC is fighting corruption. For real? CONAC is not fighting any corruption.
There is a ministry, Supreme State Audit, that is supposed to investigate, audit all of this. We have ANIF, we have a lot.
Mr. Leo, if you want to fight corruption, follow the simple process Magufuli did. It's not difficult. You don't need mathematicians, you don't need magicians, you don't need prophets to fight corruptions in your country. It's simple. How much is your salary? How much? You look at the amount of houses you have built, the amount of cars you have bought, the amount of money you have stocked in your bank account. How much are you earning a salary? That becomes a very practical question. You have been made a mayor. How much is your salary? Look at the things you live like somebody who is a businessman. It's very simple. So you come to realize that the system, when you get into the system protects you and you protect the system. And the system does not work to favor the masses. And this is what we are saying, Mr. Liu. So it comes back to accountability. Okay. If the people decide today in Cameroon to hold the administrators accountable,
they will stand up.
Yes.
Okay.
They will stand upright. We have seen that in other countries, Mr. Liu.
Good
They will
evening,
stand upright.
good evening, Mr. Liu. Eneo will not allow me follow up the program. I don't even know those who are in the panel decks today. No electricity since morning. It just came now, but it's on and off. Chai, Cameroon. What's left for Cameroonians again when everything has been privatized? Daisy is writing from Kumba. Quite unfortunate there, Daisy. We understand. Okay. I'm Ambe Franklin from Njombe. Greetings, sir. Our country needs powerful deliverance. Okay, you can start the prayers here. I think so. My advice to all Cameroonians is that we should all engage into the boreholes forage, and as a professional in the sector, I will appreciate if such project is being handled by myself. No matter where you are within the territory of Cameroon, contact me through the numbers. Engineer Penku Emmanuel. Engineer, you want me to advertise? Just send the advertisement. Send me money. I'll advertise your business. Hi, Mr. Liu. It's Lawrence and Chinda from Bamenda. I just like your programs. It's a very interesting one. Continue in the spirit, Chinda. Thank you. Also, Chinese came to Bamenda town dock and replaced existing snake pipes with very big ones, promising good water conditions in future. Since they left almost 5 years ago, water ceased to flow from snake taps. Onkunji, writing from Bamenda. Okay, I saw that work that was done in Bamenda. I started somewhere far up there around the road to Santa. Good evening, Mr. Kum. You are doing a great job. God bless you. Greetings to Prince Joel. Awo Caleb, writing from Yaoundé. Good evening to you all out there in the studio. My name is David and writing from Yaoundé. Indeed, the Guardian Post is not far from the truth. The government of this nation, that is the Biya regime, is not good to all Cameroonians, especially to the younger generations. Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Leo. The problem is that the developmental projects are awarded as contracts whereby more than 15% of the budget is wasted on taxes and percentages to bribe personnel. E.g., contract to construct a road from Bamenda to Bobaju. This is how the budget would be distributed by the company. 19.25% as value added tax to the government, 5.5% as income tax, 10% to the project owner, mayor or public work boss, and the other money for inspection. This left the company with about 50% of the total budget. The company ends up managing the little money left to do what they can do. So logically, only 35% of the budget was actually used for the project. I'm sure. Thanks, Kum KK, writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Cameroon is down cause our leaders and the cost they have to sit up and do something for this country. It's Princess Olivette, writing from Yaoundé. Itugebe, good evening to you, Princess. Hello. Only those selling water have water. Why? Their taps flow every day. They know where they get the water from. Just get into the business, you know where to get it. Hello, Mr. Liu. How can a general district hospital not have a standby generator in case electricity goes off? This is Michael, writing from Tico. Good evening, Mr. Liu and fellow panelists. I don't know what is wrong with that party in power, because any constituency that they fraudulently achieve through what they call elections, that locality starts to face the problem of social amenities. Theophilus is writing from Santa. Good evening, Mr. Leonard and my brothers making up the panel. More than 70% of Cameroonians keeps denying the fact that there is nothing existing in Cameroon like a COVID-19 pandemic, but I think they have a reason, given that the fact that huge funds disbursed by the IMF to help tackle a serious health challenge ends up in private pockets. Mohamadu, writing from Tico. Now,
as concerned agriculture,
yeah,
our parents of yesteryears, agriculture sent their children to school. Agriculture protected their children. You see, Ahijo, when Ahijo was saying that a green revolution, he motivated people, he inspired people to go back to the land. He said that's where the wealth lies. People should go back to the land. And people, if you see how people contributed in building this country through agriculture, people from CDC who were cutting robbers and what took that money from agriculture and sent their children to school. So many parents. Look at marketing board. Marketing board was booming in this country, but marketing board just died down like that completely. Look at Medino from Northwest. It just look at using a cafe in Kongsamba. All the maize camp in Gaundele in Fumane. It has all died down because there is no motivation, no encouragement from government to sustain agriculture. Fonade is dead. Fonade is no longer there. The way which was contributing loans and mutopin for farmers, it is not there. So you see that because of the lukewarm attitude of government, agriculture, especially in terms of cash crops, is dying gradually. People are only fighting now for food crops for survival. Everybody now knows that the only way to survive, if rain is falling, let him go and plant his cocoa, his plantain and cocoyam. People are only fighting for food crops.
For subsistence.
For issue of cash crop is gone.
So
gone.
The idea of second generation.
I mean, there's no motivation from the government for people to go into large-scale farming. If you see people are going there, it's individual people are going on land, planting cocoa, planting rubber, planting bush pepper, planting this. Only these are individuals who are doing them now, only to make for their commercial purposes. But on the part of the government, it's a debt issue.
Okay.
Mr. Leo is right. There's something that we have forgotten. There is a tomato factory that was created in Bamenda by the Japanese, so that all these Fumbo tomatoes they could process and sell to Cameroonians. The Japanese constructed that tomato factory very well, and the moment they gave it to us to manage, that's all about the tomato factory. That's why you see tomato now has problems.
Yes.
That's why you see those who are producing tomato in the Northwest cannot adequately meet the market. That tomato factory was supplying manufactured tomatoes. We buy from the farmers, give them capital and buy and supply to the nation. But now we are importing tomatoes made from outside the country, and the moment we handle that, we crumble it.
So the problem is not necessarily the foreigners, but us.
It's us. The problem is us. That's
I
just wanted to give that input.
remember some of the roads that were done in Biya during the 50th anniversary.
This is a road.
The reunification. The roads that were done by Arab contractors are still in very good shapes, but we know the two roads that were done by our own. You know, all of them are completely destroyed. So at times we blame the foreigners when we are.
Let me give that interjection so that we see the picture.
Now, thank you to you, Janet Manigri. I just received something from you, Widows Might. Thank you also to you, Irene Ne for me. Widows Might, thank you very much. Please, whatever you send, be it 500, 1,000 or 2,000, it is going to help. It is a spirit. I'm sure if I were to hand 2,000 to a mother in Tiku who for a whole day has not gotten anything, I think she's going to smile. So we thank you, Irene, and to you, Janet, who has just dropped something. Now, we are talking about, we were supposed to talk about a second topic. We don't have time. We may come to it tomorrow. But let me just ask you as a teaser. We are talking about decentralization in Cameroon. The President of the Republic said he wanted a fast tracking of this process. There is a law on decentralization. So far, has anything changed?
Nothing has changed actually, Mr. Liu, because decentralization actually meant that power needed to go. Decentralization is just the opposite of centralization. It means that the concentration of power in Yaoundé needed to go down. The common man needed to feel it. It means that we're expecting to see mayors having more power. We're expecting to see councillors. In fact, the local administrators, we're expecting to see them be at the forefront of decision making. But it hasn't changed. Maybe because they are still waiting to hear from the person who actually announced that there will be effective decentralization, because in the field nothing is still being fed. Mayors still wait and take orders from Yaoundé and from administrators, that's the divisional officers. I think that decentralization will only say that it has gone down to the field when we start seeing mayors doing what, for instance, Paul Kinge was doing. That is
attempting, and
he had a problem.
He made a stiff resistance. It's very true, but we only say that decentralization has started, because as of now it has not. It has not yet gone down to the common man.
Yes. Do you have a feeling that the people who live in our subdivision where we find ourselves can feel a difference since the enactment of
there's no time, so let me just go straight to the point. Nothing has changed. It's like a physical change.
Okay.
No new substance has been formed. It is easily reversible. In fact, nothing is like nothing has changed. It has instead moved from bad to worse because you don't feel the impact. So it was like wasting. When I mean bad to worse, like you're wasting resources.
It was just a slogan.
It's just a slogan. It was just you're wasting resources, multiplying positions and no function. You saw, for example, for yourself what happened at Port Erikinge. It was not supported by the same Ministry of Decentralization where he stood up. Instead, the Ministry of Decentralization was supposed to back him up. Look at what happened in Douala, closure of school when a mayor wanted to disinfect a school, a council school. So to tell you that we are still we are creeping and crawling, but it's not going. Go and ask the local people in where I come from in Moya, if they will tell you about the regional council or what their functions are or what they think their duties and responsibilities. That's just to tell you that it was more for a political gain. That's why we're laughing, because we all know.
Okay.
Even the regional council people say it's a scam. No, because since they were elected, they have not started even for one session to discuss issues. So it's just a scam, and nobody's talking about everything.
ATEM BAKO, before the elections and after the elections, we had a series of debates on the positive aspects that were going to accompany the coming into place of the regional councils. Are you still very optimistic, and you're also questioning like others why till now nothing is happening? We're getting nothing from them.
Well,
are they still fine-tuning what they have to do?
Mr. Leo, everything is being guided by principles. Decentralization without autonomy is of no use. So it is we should really understand what decentralization is all about. Is to be able to accord people autonomy on each region so that they can manage their own affairs. But if that autonomy has not been given, that simply means there is no decentralization. It's just point blank. Would the question be that the alleged sins of the 410 political parties are falling on the head of the common people? Because the reason why the Cameroonians are poor is because of these leaders, and the reason why they remain poor is because they have chosen to be so. Because when we talk about decentralization, Mr. Leo, it was an venture to ease out the tension of centralized power and to give regions the possibility to compete in development. So if they do not have autonomy, like I said, like we talk about our African independence, as long as there is no veto power, there is no independence. Independence has to do with veto power, having the right to make decisions despite the interference of all other parties who do not consent. So that's what veto power means. Powers that are able to change unchangeable situations in your country. We don't have veto power. So when we talk about decentralization, Mr. Liu, as long as there is no autonomy, there is no decentralization. So decentralization has to do with full political rights and economical rights, managing.
But you sounded so optimistic.
Yes, I was, because when we talk about decentralization, definitely we are talking about autonomy. You cannot talk about independence or somebody becomes mature and you don't talk about accountability. The person should be responsible for his actions.
They have been elected.
That is why I say, that is why you started by asking, has this regime it's been failing the Cameroonians? The answer, yes, it's true. It's quite obvious. Because leadership should not be, it has nothing to do with age. It will just be a, how will I put it, a waste of years. Leadership has to do with evidence.
Persons actually celebrated, gave hope that this the coming into a place of the regional councils was going to.
Mr. Liu, from the grand national dialogue to the reconstruction to the decentralization is just I don't know how to say it, but to me I think that pragmatism should be what we should base our
our focus on.
Okay.
There are no proofs, there are no works
Okay.
on ground to convince the Cameroonian that we are gearing towards decentralization.
Okay, Yaoundé, that we call capital city, is indeed a big village. I tell you, I was so ashamed when I went to Abuja and could not find good areas in infrastructure to best describe my capital. Yet the ministers and our head of state spend majority of the budget to defend every year at the National Assembly and Senate in foreign countries where their children live luxury lives. Okay, David, thank you for that message. The lights are just going on and off in Limbe Mile 4. It's as if a child is playing with the power supply button at the power station. Terrible. Good evening to you. Not easy situation for the people of Kumba and Limbe there. Mr. Leo, good evening. I'm very sorry for Cameroonians, but one thing I know, God is alive. What did we do to be punished in this way? Let us seek God's face. Okay, Ceci is writing from Limbe. Good evening, Mr. Leo. It's Marcel Remeshi from Yaoundé. All hope have been lost in the government, and we need another Messiah to get us out of this dictatorship, because any political party that is not out for the good of its citizens is a thief and needs to be pulled out. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Every other person in the studio, Cameroon is really getting worse and worse every day. I guess it's more than our leaders, so we only have to pray for God's intervention. Sharon is writing from Bomenda. Good evening to you. Sharon, good evening to you. Mr. Leo. Okay, the messages are disturbing, but we have MPs in Yaoundé now. We are talking about why are you laughing? Sure. I say we have MPs in Yaoundé.
MPs in Yaoundé.
Yeah, we have MPs in Yaoundé, and we are months into the election of regional council executives. Should they not also question why the regional councils are not functioning?
Government bills are brought to the assembly by governments, and CPDM parliamentarians, they're always solidarity with the government. They don't dare challenge any bill.
Are you telling me that the CPDM MPs from the far north are not worried?
They are not worried.
They are not worried.
You
that
cannot
the
dare.
Yeah, but this is
You
about
cannot dare challenge any bill.
This is about the interest of the people of the north region. The regional president he died last week.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that the people of the east region, they have a regional council? Would their MPs not also be interested in knowing why the regional councils are not?
They don't have a say. They don't have a say.
The MPs don't
Government bring bills to the assembly, and they only make we the call. Nobody goes against that bill because you either toe the line. They say party discipline. You have to toe the line and make sure that that bill goes through. You don't, no matter how your people are suffering in your regions, in your division and subdivision, that is not the problem of the MP or the senator. He's there to protect the interests of the party, the image of the party which brought him there. That is his only role to play, to protect the image of the party. He can only go behind and meet the minister behind and tell him that, Bo, if you are making budget for this thing in Adamawa region or Far North region, please take into consideration give us a few kilometers of road to be tarred.
That goes to my village.
That goes to my village. That's how they do it.
Okay, Prince, MPs, do you think if the MPs cannot say something, let some civil society organizations or the media even ask the question, where are we with the regional councils? Why were they elected?
Sure, Mr. Leo, that is why we're even doing a program like this. I believe that the purpose for the regional councils and the regional elections that held, the purpose was to fast track the decentralization process. In fact, the president for the Northwest, Prof. Amgwafo III, used a slogan when he was elected. The slogan he was always using was me na you, you na me, all for we, something like that. Now, I believe that time has come for action. Time has come for people to leave slogans and start acting. And why are we not seeing the field work? We're not seeing the field work because, Mr. Liu, we should note that these elections took place under a situation where they hardly had oppositions. It is true they had elections. Take the case of Northwest and the Southwest. It was purely CPDM, where they had everything. So you do not expect, like my elder brother was saying here, you do not expect somebody who was voted under party disciplines, because all the names came from Yaoundé. The names, the list that came for the regional councillors, the bureau itself, everything came from Yaoundé. You don't expect them to stand up one day and start going against the teachings in Yaoundé. That is why, even during the twin elections, Mr. Liu, look at the president of the National Assembly, for instance, the people of Mayo Sava. It was on media, it was all over, where the people said, no, we do not want you again as a candidate because you've given us nothing. That thing did not work because he did not only win, but he's still the president of the Senate. Of the National Assembly. It goes to tell you that, I'll give you a case even from other areas. At times in Cameroon, Mr. Leo hate the mayor, hate the parliamentarian, but you have nothing to do with his position.
Okay.
Because Javis said something about let the people like. In our country, to the once the political party, which is CPDM, decides that Javis will be mayor, take it or leave it, you will be mayor.
But that is different from basic commodities. Like I said, it's different.
Please. We are out of time. I want to thank you, Emmanuel Ngwa Bongfen. You sent something to help our IDPs. This one, Fonrem Jivirka, Ernestine. Thank you to you, Kum Carlos Kanga, and also to you, Samuel Mbilanjo. Thank you to you, all of you who sent us something. By the end of next week, we are going to put down every amount that has been sent to me. I have all the names. We're going to read them out, and we decide how to hand this package over to our mamas who called crying that I should see how to help them. I want to thank all of you. If you think that you want to join, please just send whatever is not small to put a smile on the faces of our people who are suffering for something they did not bargain for. We want to say tomorrow on this same program, we are going to be looking at a letter that was sent from the Coalition for Dialogue. They sent it to, I'm sure, this U.S. Secretary of State in connection with the ongoing Anglophone crisis, and to say that they are proposing a way out of the conflict. We also are going to be dwelling on the article by the Guardian Post that says that the United Nations is saying that the agenda to discuss the Anglophone crisis is nowhere around the corner. It's a massive yes, so people need to wait for so long before the United Nations Security Council will be able to discuss about it. But we want to say we are very grateful to you all who took time off to watch this program this evening. We also want to say thank you to you, Mr. Suleiman, all the way from Kuma.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I think well, I'm very happy to be on the program today, and I think I will always be when it's necessary.
Okay, and also to you, Andre ATEM BAKO, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kum Leonard, and I just want to add by saying that all those administrators who are over 55 years, those ones are principalities and power, and those administrators that are below 55 years, those ones are clerks. We don't have people in Cameroon who reflect the spirit of Cameroonians. Change can come from bottom. If Cameroonians will decide like Malians did, this country will change overnight. The call is in our hands to decide how the future should look like. Thank you very much, Mr. Liu.
We also want to thank you, Prince Joel, for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu. We've discussed something that has got to touch me and touches every Cameroonian. It's a privilege being on board. I want to say a special good evening to Fuma Veronica and to the entire Fuma's family, and to my friend who watched it, Mutengene, Kwajika Nyambo of Kwajikate.
Okay, thank you to Tamai Javis for coming.
Thank you, Mr. Liu, and a special good evening to the President of the Catholic University Institute of Biya, Professor Victor Julius Ngo, and of course the Bishop of Biya, His Lordship Michael Bibi.
Thank you to you, Desmond and Eli, and to you, Bertrand and Noel, at the broadcasting. We also want to say thank you to you, Tambe Bryant, who is supervising our work out here. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.